She believed another man was better. She was wrong. And the moment she figured that out, quietly, unavoidably, in the specific way that reality always eventually corrects a bad comparison, you were already somewhere else. Already building. Already becoming the man she did not realize she had until she tried to find him somewhere else and couldn't. Like and subscribe to Stoic Blessing. We show up every week for the man doing the hard work. Let's get into it. The first thing to understand is why she believed another man was better. Because understanding the mechanism clearly is what prevents you from absorbing her mistake as a verdict on your worth. The comparison she made was never objective. It was never between you and him as you both actually are. It was between the full, complex, genuinely known reality of you, including the parts that required something from her, and the unearned, novelty-filtered legend stage projection of someone who had not yet had the chance to reveal his full reality. She was not comparing two people. She was comparing a reality to a projection. And projections, by definition, cannot survive contact with reality. The projection fades the moment the real person begins to emerge through it. The moment the patterns surface. The moment the work of genuinely knowing someone begins to replace the pleasure of not yet knowing them. Marcus Aurelius called this the failure of perception, the specific human tendency to accept the story over the thing itself. She did not choose a better man. She chose an unknown one. And what she has been discovering since that choice is the difference between those two things. Every moment his patterns emerged in ways that yours did not. The gap between what she projected and what is real widened. Every moment, the specific quality of what you brought became visible in its absence. The gap widened further. And the gap, once wide enough, produces the feeling that the word regret only partially captures. Not just I made the wrong choice, but I had something real, and I did not know how to see it until it was gone. Comment below. She traded real for new if the comparison was never as fair as she thought. Here is the psychological process that produces the regret. Because understanding it is part of what allows you to receive it without being pulled back into a dynamic by it. The regret does not arrive all at once. It accumulates slowly and involuntarily through the specific experience of contrast. Every moment, the new relationship fails to produce what the comparison promised. The gap widens. Every moment, the genuine investment you brought becomes visible in its absence. The gap widens. The human mind, as Epictetus understood with great precision, does not accurately assess the value of what it has while it has it. It assesses it with sudden and painful clarity the moment it becomes unavailable. The water becomes precious when the well runs dry. The health becomes irreplaceable when it is threatened. The genuine connection becomes visible when the novelty that replaced it begins to fade and the comparison reveals itself to have been built on fundamentally unequal information. She is not a villain in this story. She is a human being who made the very human error of believing the unknown was more valuable than the real, and who is now learning through the unavoidable curriculum of experience that she was wrong. That learning is real. What she does with it is the question. But the learning itself, the growing, involuntary, impossible to argue with recognition that what she traded away was genuinely worth having, is happening. Not because you orchestrated it, because reality is doing what reality always does when the story it was sold fails to hold up. Comment below, reality did the work if the truth revealed itself without you saying a single word. Now the Stoic demand, the most important one this video makes. You cannot let her regret become your validation. You cannot make her recognition of what she lost the confirmation your self-worth has been waiting for. Because if her regret is what finally makes you feel okay, if the proof that she was wrong is what restores your sense of worth, then your worth was never truly yours. It was always on loan from her judgment. And self-worth on loan from someone's judgment when it was favorable is still on loan from their judgment when it reverses. It is still dependent on her as the authority, still organized around her assessment as the measure of your value. The Stoic work, the real liberation-producing work, is the complete relocation of that authority from her to you, so that her regret is received not as the restoration of something she took, but as the confirmation of something you already knew and no longer needed her to confirm. The man who needed her to regret it to feel okay has not done the Stoic work. He has just been waiting for the external validation to shift direction. The man who receives her regret with genuine equanimity, who can acknowledge it honestly without dismissing it or drinking from it, is the man who built his sense of himself from the inside. Marcus Aurelius did not need Rome to validate his choices. He built his sense of himself daily through the specific practice of asking whether his choices reflected the man he had decided to be. That is the work. And the man who has done it receives her regret not as the restoration of his worth, but as the quiet confirmation of something he has long since stopped needing her to confirm. Comment below, I already knew, if her regret confirmed what you built long before she figured it out. Let's talk about what you actually built in the period between her choice and her regret, because this is the part of the story that matters most and gets the least attention. Most narratives focus entirely on her arc, but the man's arc, what he did in the period when he had no idea whether the regret was coming, when he was building with no guarantee of any recognition, that is the arc that actually matters, because it was entirely within his control, and what he built in it determines not just how he handles her regret when it arrives, but who he is in every relationship that follows this one. The Stoic prescription for that period was never contingent on the outcome. It was never build yourself so she comes back. It was build yourself because your life is happening right now, and the quality of how you spend it is the only measure of it that is genuinely yours. Every day you invested in your work, your body, your craft, your inner life, not to produce her regret, but because those things were worth doing regardless. You were building the man who receives her regret with equanimity rather than desperate relief. Seneca wrote that the man who acts from his values rather than from his hoped-for outcomes is genuinely free, because his actions belong to him entirely, regardless of what they produce. The building you did in that period belongs entirely to you. Her regret is a side effect. The building is the substance. Comment below, I built for me, if your growth was never actually about her reaction to it. Here is the honest accounting of what her regret does and does not change, because this moment requires clarity more than satisfaction. Her regret does not change what happened. It does not retroactively make her choice the right one or restore what it cost you. It does not erase the work the painful period required. It does not guarantee that the recognition she now has will translate into the different behavior that would have prevented the original situation. Regret is a feeling. Feelings, however genuine, do not automatically produce different choices. The woman who regrets choosing another man is not automatically the woman who has done the inner work to understand why she made that choice and what would need to change for her to make a better one. Regret is the beginning of possible change. It is not the change itself. Marcus Aurelius did not consider remorse to be virtue. He considered the changed behavior that remorse was supposed to produce to be virtue. Applied here, her regret is worth noting honestly and worth neither dismissing nor overweighting. It is information, not a verdict, not a resolution. Information that suggests the possibility of genuine change, which may or may not materialize into anything real. The man who holds it at that weight, who neither rejects it cynically nor grabs it desperately, is the man most capable of responding to it wisely rather than reactively. Comment below, regret isn't change, if you know the difference between someone feeling sorry and someone showing up differently. What to do if she comes back deserves to be addressed with full honesty, because her regret, in many cases, eventually produces a reach. And that reach deserves a response worthy of the man you have become. Not a cold response, not a punishing one, not a performance of indifference designed to make her feel the weight of what she is trying to recover. A genuinely considered, honestly grounded response that comes from the specific place the work built. The place of genuine self-sufficiency and the genuine knowledge of what a connection would need to offer to be worth your real investment. Warm because you are warm. Honest because you are honest. Clear because you have done the honest accounting of the previous dynamic. The Stoic question in this moment is precise. Is what she is offering now genuinely different from what the dynamic was before? Not in her words, in the specific observable behavioral evidence of what she is willing to bring. The regret that produces genuine willingness to show up differently is a different offering from the regret that simply wants to restore access to what was lost. The first is worth exploring with full openness. The second is the previous dynamic, attempting to reassert itself under the emotional cover of remorse. The man who has done the work knows the difference not because he is cynical, but because he is clear. Comment below, new terms or no terms, if you've decided that her coming back starts a real conversation, not ends one. Here is what her regret ultimately confirms, not as a source of satisfaction, but as the clarifying information that rounds out the honest picture. The regret confirms that what you brought was real and worth having, that the investment you made was the kind that registers its absence when it is gone, that you were not wrong to bring what you brought. You were simply in a dynamic with someone who was not yet equipped to receive it at the level it deserved. That is painful. It is also clarifying. It tells you that the issue was never your worth. It was the timing, the readiness, the specific chapter that the other person was in, and those things were genuinely outside your control. Epictetus would say this clarification is the appropriate endpoint of the emotional processing of this experience. Not the satisfaction of her regret, not the relief of her return, but the clean, honest acknowledgement that you were never the problem. The mismatch was, and mismatches are not verdicts, they are circumstances. The man who receives that understanding, who integrates it honestly rather than using it to dismiss his own growth or justify resentment, enters his next connection as himself, fully, without the defensive modifications that unprocessed pain produces, as the specific built, genuinely self-knowing man that this entire experience has been producing all along. Comment below, never the problem. If the whole experience finally showed you the issue was always the mismatch, not your worth. Here is what separates the man who genuinely moves forward from the man who just says he has. It is not the absence of feeling. It is not the performance of having moved on. It is the specific, quiet, internal shift that happens when a man stops measuring his days by whether she has recognized what she lost and starts measuring them by whether he is becoming who he has decided to be. That shift, from her timeline to his own, from her recognition to his own daily accounting, is the Stoic shift. The shift Marcus Aurelius made every morning in his journals before the empire needed anything from him, not asking whether Rome had noticed his virtue, asking whether he had lived it. That question, directed inward, answered honestly, acted on daily, is what produces the man who eventually becomes genuinely impossible to regret losing because he is genuinely too absorbed in his own becoming to be easily found. The man who asks that question daily stops needing the external story to resolve favorably. He already has his answer. He already knows from the inside what he is building and why it matters and where it is going. And that knowing, not performed, not announced, not dependent on her eventual realization, is the most attractive, most grounded, most genuinely magnetic quality a man can carry into any room, any relationship, any conversation. It is the quality of someone who is completely, fully, unapologetically elsewhere, in his own life, building his own thing, certain of his own worth in the only way that actually counts, not because she confirmed it, but because he earned it. Comment below, "I'm elsewhere now," if you've stopped waiting for her story to resolve and started living your own. The final thing. The one that brings everything together. She believed another man was better. She was wrong. And you, in the period between her belief and her regret, built something that her regret could not have given you even if it had arrived on day one. You built the knowledge earned through the specific and irreplaceable experience of living through this without collapsing into it, of exactly who you are when things are hard and the only instruction available is to keep building. That knowledge is not about her. It was never about her. It is the relationship you now have with yourself, the tested, proven, unshakable relationship of a man who knows what he is made of because he has been made to show himself. Not in the abstract, in the daily, difficult, genuinely costly reality of building through a loss, while the outcome was still completely uncertain. That man, the one who built without knowing if recognition was coming, who invested without the guarantee of return, who chose himself in the specific and unglamorous way of simply refusing to stop, is the whole point. Not the story where she comes back, not the satisfaction of her regret. The man, the actual, built, genuinely different man, who is standing on the other side of all of this with something that cannot be given, cannot be performed, and cannot be taken away. Like and subscribe to Stoic Blessing. Stay grounded, stay whole, stay unbreakable.